The rain hammered against the windows of Ji-won Park's apartment like 1,000 tiny fists. He sat at his desk staring at the holographic screen floating in front of him. Another day, another alien message to translate. The words of some distant diplomat complaining about trade routes. Boring work, but it paid the bills. Ji-won rubbed his tired eyes. At 32 years old, he had imagined his life would be more exciting. Earth had joined the Galactic Council 15 years ago, and everyone thought humanity would explore the stars, meet fascinating aliens, and have grand adventures. Instead, Ji-won sat in a small apartment in Seoul translating bureaucratic nonsense. The knock on his door made him jump. Nobody visited him. His friends were busy with their own lives, and his family lived on the other side of the city. Deliveries always buzzed the intercom first. Ji-won frowned and walked to the door, his socks sliding on the smooth floor. He opened the door and froze. A creature stood in the hallway. No, not a creature. A person, an alien, but not just any alien. Ji-won recognized her immediately from the news broadcasts, the security briefings, the whispered conversations in every government building across Earth. Empress Velarith, the Crimson Death, sovereign of the Crethean Empire. She stood 7 feet tall, her body covered in scales as black as midnight. Golden eyes stared down at him, reptilian and sharp. She wore a dark cloak that dripped with rainwater, and beneath it Ji-won could see armor that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Her presence filled the narrow hallway like a storm. Ji-won's mouth went dry. His heart hammered in his chest. This was the alien who had conquered 40 worlds. The one whose empire stretched across 17 star systems. The one whose name made hardened soldiers go pale. And she was standing at his door. Ji-won Park? Her voice was deep, resonant, but somehow gentle. She spoke Korean perfectly without any accent. I need your help. Ji-won couldn't speak. His brain refused to process what was happening. This had to be a dream. Or a prank. Or some kind of elaborate government test. Empresses didn't knock on random doors. I know this is unexpected, Velarith continued. Her golden eyes searched his face. But I have nowhere else to go. I need sanctuary. Sanctuary? Ji-won finally managed to stammer. From what? You're the most powerful person in the galaxy. Not anymore. She glanced over her shoulder down the empty hallway. My own people want me dead, and if they find me, they'll destroy this building to get to me. Please. I wouldn't ask if there was any other choice. Ji-won's mind raced. This was insane. Completely insane. If he let her in, he'd be harboring a fugitive. The most famous fugitive in known space. The Galactic Council would throw him in prison. The Crethean Empire would hunt him. His life would be over. But something in her eyes stopped him from slamming the door. He had spent years studying alien psychology, learning to read emotions in faces that weren't human, and what he saw in Velarith's eyes wasn't pride or arrogance. It was fear. Pure, desperate fear. Please, she whispered. Before Ji-won could respond, Velarith stumbled. Her hand shot out to grab the doorframe, but she missed. She collapsed forward, and Ji-won barely managed to catch her. She was impossibly heavy, her body dense with alien muscle and bone. He grunted as he tried to support her weight. That's when he saw the blood. No, not blood. A strange silver liquid oozed from wounds on her side, soaking through her armor. The substance glowed faintly in the dim hallway light like liquid starlight. You're hurt, Ji-won said, his translator instincts overriding his panic. He had been trained for situations like this. Not exactly like this, but close enough. Come inside, quickly. He dragged her into his apartment and kicked the door shut. Velarith collapsed on his floor, her breathing labored. Ji-won ran to his supply cabinet and grabbed the alien medical kit. Every xenolinguist was issued one, designed to handle basic first aid for dozens of species. His hands shook as he opened the kit. He had practiced this in training, but never on an actual alien, and certainly never on the galaxy's most feared conqueror. What happened? He asked, pulling out scanning devices and wound sealant. Assassination attempt, Velarith said through gritted teeth. My own military commanders. They ambushed me during a meeting. I barely escaped. Ji-won scanned her wounds. The device beeped and displayed information in a language he could barely read. Crethean physiology was complex, but the basics were similar enough to humans. She had been stabbed multiple times. The wounds weren't fatal yet, but they would be if left untreated. He applied the wound sealant, watching as the silver blood stopped flowing. Velarith hissed in pain but didn't pull away. Ji-won worked quickly, his training taking over. He had always been good at focusing during emergencies. "Why would your own people try to kill you?" Ji-won asked as he worked. Velarith was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Because I made a choice they couldn't accept." "What choice?" "To save humanity." Ji-won paused, his hands hovering over another wound. "What?" Velarith's golden eyes met his. "Everything you know about the Krathian Empire is wrong. We're not conquerors. We're refugees. We've been running for 300 years, trying to stay ahead of something that hunts us, something that destroys every advanced civilization it finds." "I don't understand," Ji-won said, his mind struggling to keep up. "You will." Velarith reached into her armor and pulled out a small data device. She pressed it into Ji-won's hand. "This contains the truth. About the swarm. About what's coming for Earth. About why I came here." The swarm? An ancient machine intelligence. It follows civilizations, studying them, waiting until they reach a certain level of advancement. Then it strikes. It consumes everything. Technology, culture, life. Nothing remains. Ji-won stared at the device in his palm. It felt warm, almost alive. "And it's coming here? To Earth?" "It's already here," Velarith whispered. "It entered your solar system 3 days ago. The Galactic Council knows. They've decided not to intervene. They've written humanity off as already lost." The room seemed to tilt. Ji-won sat down hard on the floor, his legs suddenly weak. "That's impossible. Someone would have told us. Our governments, the Council, someone. They don't want to cause panic, and they don't believe anything can stop the swarm. 47 civilizations have fallen to it. Every attempt to fight has failed." "Then why are you here?" Ji-won demanded. "If it's hopeless, why come to Earth?" Velarith closed her eyes. "Because my commanders wanted to run again. Abandon Earth and flee deeper into space. But I'm tired of running, tired of watching worlds die. I came here to make a stand. Or to die trying." "That's suicide," Ji-won said. "Yes." Velarith opened her eyes and looked at him. "But at least it's my choice. For 300 years I've led my people in retreat, always one step ahead of annihilation. I won't run anymore, even if it means facing the swarm alone." Ji-won looked down at the data device in his hand, then at the alien empress bleeding on his floor, then at his quiet, ordinary apartment with its cheap furniture and unwashed dishes in the sink. His boring, safe life had just ended. "For your species' sake," Velarith said, her voice fading as exhaustion overtook her. "Don't let them find me. Not yet, there's still time, still a chance. I just need to rest, need to think, please." Her eyes closed and her breathing deepened. She had passed out. Ji-won sat in stunned silence, the data device warm in his palm. Outside, the rain continued to fall. The city continued its endless rhythm, millions of people going about their lives unaware that the most dangerous being in the galaxy was unconscious in a translator's apartment, unaware that something worse was coming for them all. Ji-won didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. An alien empress lay unconscious on his living room floor, and in his hand was a device that supposedly contained proof of humanity's impending doom. He sat at his desk, staring at the small rectangular object, afraid to activate it. Dawn light crept through his windows, painting the city in shades of gold and gray. Velarith still hadn't moved. Her chest rose and fell steadily. The silver blood now dried on her dark scales. The medical sealant had worked, but Ji-won wondered what other injuries she might have. Internal damage, broken bones, things his basic kit couldn't detect. He finally gathered the courage to insert the data device into his computer. The holographic screen flickered to life, displaying information in multiple languages. Ji-won's translation software struggled to keep up as streams of data poured across the display. What he saw made his stomach turn. Star maps showed the progression of something labeled the swarm across the galaxy. It moved like a plague, consuming civilization after civilization. Each dot on the map represented a world that had fallen silent. Dead. Empty. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The swarm traveled in a spiral, methodically wiping out every advanced society it encountered. And the spiral was tightening around Earth. Ji-won clicked through more files. Battle reports. Desperate transmissions. Final messages from dying worlds. One video showed a beautiful city on an alien planet, towers of crystal reaching toward a purple sky. Then the image distorted. Dark shapes filled the air like a swarm of mechanical insects. The crystals shattered. The sky turned black. The transmission ended. 47 civilizations all gone. Jiwon's hands trembled as he scrolled through the data. The Cretan Empire's history unfolded before him. They hadn't been conquerors at all. They had been desperately trying to evacuate worlds before the swarm arrived, forcing populations to flee their homes, to abandon their planets and join the Cretan exodus. The galaxy had seen them as invaders, but they had been trying to save lives. "You're looking at the files." Velarith's voice startled him. She had woken up and was sitting, watching him with those golden eyes. Jiwon spun in his chair. "This is real? All of it? Every word? Every image?" She stood slowly, wincing with pain. "I wish it wasn't. Why didn't you tell anyone? The Galactic Council? Earth's governments? Someone?" Velarith walked to his window and looked out at the city. Millions of people down there living their lives. "We tried. 300 years ago, when we first discovered the swarm, we warned everyone. No one believed us. They thought we were making excuses for our expansion. By the time they realized the truth, it was too late. The swarm had consumed half the civilizations that refused to evacuate. But Earth is part of the Council now," Jiwon said. "They could tell us. Warn us. The Council has given up." Velarith's voice was bitter. "They've calculated that the swarm will reach the Council worlds in approximately 200 years. They plan to use that time to develop new weapons, new defenses. They've decided to sacrifice younger civilizations like humanity to buy themselves time." Jiwon felt anger rise in his chest. "That's murder." "Yes." Velarith turned to face him. "That's why I couldn't accept my commander's decision to abandon Earth. The Council is wrong. Running only delays the inevitable. The swarm is patient. It will find everyone eventually." "Then what can we do?" Jiwon asked. "If 47 civilizations couldn't stop it, what chance does Earth have?" Velarith was quiet for a moment. Then she crossed the room and sat across from him. Up close, Jiwon could see the exhaustion in her face, the weight of centuries bearing down on her. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I had to try. Even if it means dying here." Jiwon studied her. This wasn't the monster from the news broadcasts. This was someone who had been fighting a losing battle for lifetimes, who had made terrible choices trying to save as many people as possible. Someone who was tired of running. "Tell me about the swarm," Jiwon said. "How does it work? What does it want?" Velarith pulled up a holographic display from her armor's computer. A three-dimensional model appeared between them, showing a complex structure of interlocking machines. "The swarm is ancient. We estimate it's at least 50,000 years old. It's not biological. It's pure technology, machines that replicate and adapt. Like a virus," Jiwon said. "Exactly. But incredibly intelligent. It studies each civilization it encounters, learning their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. By the time it attacks, it knows everything about its target. Defense systems are useless. The swarm has already calculated how to defeat them." Jiwon watched the holographic machines rotate. They looked like insects, thousands of small drones working together. There must be a central intelligence, something controlling them all. There is. We call it the core. It's hidden somewhere in deep space, sending out these vanguard swarms to do the actual work. Destroy the core and, theoretically, all the swarms would shut down. Velarith's expression darkened, but no one has ever found it. The core is careful. It never reveals its location. What about the civilizations that have fought back? There must be records, strategies that worked, even temporarily. Velarith manipulated the display, showing battle after battle. Each one ended the same way. Defeat. Annihilation. A few civilizations managed to destroy vanguard forces. But the swarm learns from every engagement. It adapts. What worked once never works again. Jiwon leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He was a translator, not a soldier or a scientist. But his job had taught him to look for patterns, to find meaning in communication. "The swarm is looking for something," he said slowly. "It's not just destroying civilizations randomly. There's a pattern." Velarith nodded. "We've noticed that too. The swarm seems to target civilizations that are approaching a certain threshold, species on the verge of major technological or social breakthroughs. We call it the transcendence point." Transcendence? The moment when a species evolves beyond its current form. Post-biological existence, collective consciousness, dimensional travel. The swarm destroys civilizations right before they can achieve these things. Jiwon frowned. "Why? What does it gain?" "We don't know. Perhaps it sees transcended species as threats. Perhaps it's following ancient programming from its creators. All we know is that the swarm has a pattern, and humanity fits that pattern perfectly. But we're so young, G1 protested. We've only been in space for a few generations. We're nowhere near transcending. Bellerith gave him a sad smile. That's not how the swarm calculates threat levels. It looks at potential, not current capability. And humanity has something that makes the swarm very interested. What? Your minds. Bellerith pulled up another display showing human brain scans alongside other alien species. Humanity has unusual cognitive flexibility. You adapt to new situations faster than almost any other known species. You form connections between disparate concepts in ways that surprise even advanced civilizations. The swarm's algorithm has classified you as a high-priority target. Jiwan stared at the brain scans. Humanity's greatest strength was also their death sentence. So we're too interesting to live. Essentially, yes. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the city was waking up. People heading to work. Children going to school, everyone living their normal lives. Unaware that they had maybe weeks, maybe days before everything ended. Your commanders tried to kill you because you wanted to help us, G1 said quietly. They see it as throwing away Krathian lives for nothing. They believe Earth is already lost. They want to use our remaining resources to flee farther, find new hiding places. They think I've become emotionally compromised, weak. Are you? Velarith met his eyes. Maybe. 300 years of watching worlds die has an effect. I used to believe in strength and survival at any cost. But what's the point of surviving if you become something monstrous in the process? Jiwan understood. He had seen it in her eyes the night before. Velarith wasn't weak. She was just tired of being strong in all the wrong ways. I need to report this, Jiwan said. To someone. The government, the military, someone who can help. They won't believe you, Velarith said. I'm a wanted fugitive. Any information from me will be dismissed as lies. And even if they believe you, what will they do? Panic? Start a planet-wide evacuation to nowhere? She was right. Jiwan knew she was right. But sitting here doing nothing felt wrong. There has to be something we can do. Velarith stood and walked back to the window. There might be. Before my commanders tried to kill me, I established several weapons caches on Earth. Technology that could fight the swarm's vanguard forces. Not permanently, but it might buy time. Where? Jiwan asked, hope rising in his chest. The largest cache is hidden beneath the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. In territory no one has accessed in decades. If we could reach it, we might have a chance. Jiwan's hope deflated. That's impossible. The DMZ is one of the most heavily monitored areas on Earth. And even if we could get there, we'd need military authorization to access those sites. I know. Velarith turned to face him. But it's the only option we have. Before G1 could respond, his computer beeped urgently. An alert flashed across the screen. Breaking news. He pulled up the broadcast and felt his blood run cold. Krathian warships had appeared in Earth's orbit. Dozens of them. The news anchors the news broadcast played on every screen in G1's apartment. Krathian warships filled the sky above Earth, their massive dark hulls blocking out stars. The images were terrifying. Each ship was the size of a city, bristling with weapons that could reduce continents to ash. Earth's defense forces scrambled into position, but everyone knew the truth. Humanity's military was like a child with a stick facing a pack of wolves. If the Krathians wanted to destroy Earth, nothing could stop them. We need to leave, G1 said, pacing across his small living room. Right now, if they track you here, this entire building becomes a target. Velarith stood motionless, watching the broadcasts with an unreadable expression. They won't attack civilian targets. Not yet. My cousin commands that fleet. He follows certain rules, even in rebellion. Your cousin? Jiwan stopped pacing. The one trying to kill you is family? Commander Thexval. My mother's sister's son. We grew up together, trained together. He was my most trusted officer. Pain flickered across Velarith's face, until he decided I was leading our people to extinction. The broadcast changed. A Krathian appeared on screen, his scales a deep crimson color, his armor ornate and covered in battle scars. He spoke in the Krathian language, but Earth's computers quickly translated his words into every human language. People of Earth, I am Commander Thexval of the Krathian Imperial Fleet. We have not come to conquer you. We seek only one individual, The former Empress Velarith is on your world. She is a traitor to the Crethean people and a threat to your safety. Surrender her within 72 hours and we will leave peacefully. Refuse and we will take her by force. We deeply regret any collateral damage this may cause. The broadcast ended. Jiwon felt his legs go weak. Collateral damage. They were talking about potentially millions of deaths as if it were nothing more than an unfortunate necessity. We have to run, Jiwon said again. Hide somewhere they can't find us. There is nowhere to hide, Velarith replied calmly. Thexval has scanners that can detect my biosignature from orbit. He's probably already narrowed down my location to the city district. Running would only delay the inevitable. Jiwon wanted to scream. How was she so calm? Then what do we do? Before Velarith could answer, someone hammered on the door. Not a knock. A demand for entry. Jiwon and Velarith exchanged glances. The Empress moved instantly, her body fluid despite her injuries. She pulled a weapon from her armor, something that looked like a cross between a sword and a gun. Don't answer it, she whispered. But the voice that came through the door was human. Jiwon, open this door right now or I'm breaking it down. Jiwon recognized that voice. Relief and new worry flooded through him. It's Hana, my friend. She's in the military. Then she's the last person who should see me, Velarith hissed. If I don't open the door, she'll break it down. She's serious. Jiwon moved toward the door. Trust me, please. Velarith hesitated, then lowered her weapon slightly. Jiwon opened the door to find Captain Hana Yoon standing in the hallway, in full Earth Defense Force uniform, her hand on her sidearm. Two soldiers flanked her, both armed. Hana was small compared to most soldiers, barely 5 feet tall, but Jiwon had known her since childhood. He knew better than to underestimate her. She had the kind of determination that could move mountains. Step aside, Jiwon, Hana said, her voice hard. We've been monitoring alien communications. Encrypted signals have been pinging from this building. Signals matching Crethean military codes. Hana, I can explain. Is she here? Hana pushed past him, her soldiers following. They swept the apartment with practiced efficiency, weapons raised. When they entered the living room and saw Velarith, all three froze. The Empress stood in the center of the room, towering over the humans, her weapon held loosely in one hand. She didn't point it at anyone, but the threat was clear. One move and people would die. Stand down, Hana shouted, her gun trained on Velarith. On the ground, now! No one needs to die here, Velarith said calmly. I will leave peacefully. But first, let me speak. You don't give orders here. One of the soldiers moved forward. Velarith moved faster than Jiwon could follow. One moment she was standing still. The next she had disarmed the soldier and had him on the ground, her foot on his chest. She hadn't hurt him, just immobilized him with terrifying efficiency. Hana, stop! Jiwon stepped between them. Just listen. Please, I know how this looks, but you need to hear what she has to say. Hana's gun never wavered. You're harboring the most wanted fugitive in the galaxy. Give me one reason why I shouldn't call for backup and have both of you arrested. Because Earth is going to die, Jiwon said desperately, and she's trying to save it. That made Hana pause. Her eyes flicked between Jiwon and Velarith. Explain now, and it better be good. So they told her everything. About the swarm, about the Crethean Empire's true history, about the weapons cache in the DMZ. Hana listened, her expression growing darker with every word. Velarith released the soldier and stepped back, showing that she meant no harm. When they finished, Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she holstered her weapon. Show me the proof. Jiwon pulled up the data files. Hana studied them with a soldier's eye, analyzing battle reports and tactical assessments. Jiwon watched her face change as the truth sank in. Anger, fear, determination. This is real, Hana finally said. It wasn't a question. Every word, Velarith confirmed. Hana turned to her soldiers. You two outside. Guard the hallway. No one comes in or out, and not a word of this to anyone. That's an order. The soldiers exchanged glances but obeyed. When they were alone, Hana collapsed into a chair. The government knows, don't they? Our leaders. They've been briefed about the swarm. Some of them, Velarith said. The Galactic Council shared limited information, but they downplayed the threat. Told your leaders it was a distant problem decades away. They lied. Of course they did. Hana laughed bitterly. Can't cause a panic. Better to let billions die unprepared. She looked up at Velarith. Your cousin is giving us 72 hours to hand you over. I know. And you have weapons hidden in the DMZ that might help us fight this swarm thing. Yes. Then we need to get there. Fast. Hana stood up, her military training taking over, but that area is locked down. Multiple security zones, automated defense systems, minefields. It's literally designed to keep everyone out. I can disable the security systems remotely, Velareth said, but we'll need to travel quickly and quietly. Thexfa will have kill teams searching for me. Human and Krethian forces will be looking for any sign of unusual movement. Hana paced, thinking, we'll need transport. Something fast and small enough to avoid detection, and we'll need to leave within the hour, before the government decides to just hand you over to prevent a war. You're helping us? Ji-won asked, surprised. Hana gave him a sharp look. I'm helping Earth. If what you're saying is true, then humanity doesn't have the luxury of playing politics. We need those weapons, and we need them now. She turned to Velareth. But make no mistake. I don't trust you. The moment I think you're lying or putting my people at risk, I will put a bullet in you. Clear? Velareth inclined her head. Clear and wise. You would make a good Krethian officer, Captain Yoon. I'll take that as a compliment. Hana activated her communication device. I'm calling in some favors. We'll have transport in 30 minutes. Pack light. Only essentials. Ji-won looked around his apartment. His home, his safe, quiet life. He knew that if he walked out that door, he would never come back to this place. Everything would change. He would become a fugitive, a traitor in the eyes of his own government. But what choice did he have? Velareth was right. If they did nothing, Earth would fall. Humanity would become just another dot on the swarm's map of dead civilizations. He grabbed a backpack and started packing. Clothes, the alien medical kit, his portable computer with all his translation software. Then he paused and picked up a framed photo from his desk. His family smiling at the camera during a holiday years ago. Before first contact, when life was simpler, he tucked the photo carefully into his pack. Velareth watched him from across the room. You don't have to come with us. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is, Ji-won said firmly. This is everyone's fight, and someone needs to make sure you two don't kill each other before we reach the DMZ. Despite everything, Velareth smiled. It was a small expression, barely visible, but genuine. Thank you, Ji-won Park. Your bravery will not be forgotten. Save the thanks for when we survive this, Ji-won replied, slinging his pack over his shoulder. Hana returned from the hallway. Transport is arranged. We have a window of 40 minutes before satellite coverage catches us. Let's move. They left the apartment together. The unlikely trio, a translator, a soldier, and an alien empress. As they walked through the building's empty hallways, Ji-won couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking toward his death. But he kept walking anyway. Outside, the city continued its normal rhythm. People walked the streets, vendors sold food, children laughed and played. The sky above was filled with warships, but life went on below. Humanity's greatest strength and greatest weakness. The ability to keep going even when the world was ending. A sleek Me the transport flew north through mountains shrouded in mist. Ji-won watched the landscape change below them. Cities gave way to farmland, then to wilderness. The closer they got to the demilitarized zone, the emptier the world became. This was land that had been frozen in time for over a century, untouched by human development. Hana piloted the vehicle with steady hands, keeping them low to avoid radar detection. Velareth sat in the back, her golden eyes constantly scanning the sky for threats. Ji-won could see the strain on her face. Her wounds were taking their toll. How are you feeling? He asked the Empress. I've been worse. Velareth touched her side where the silver blood had dried. But I won't be at full strength if we encounter resistance. We'll handle any resistance, Hana said from the pilot's seat. You just get us to those weapons. They flew in silence for another hour. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. Beautiful and ominous. Ji-won couldn't help but wonder if this would be one of the last sunsets humanity ever saw. His portable computer beeped, an alert. He pulled it out and felt his stomach drop. Hana, we've got company. Two shapes appeared on the horizon behind them. Fast-moving aircraft. Military grade. Hana cursed and pushed the transport faster, but the pursuing craft were gaining quickly. Krethian kill teams, Velareth said, her voice grim. They found us. Can you lose them? Ji-won asked Hana. Not in this thing. It's fast but not combat rated. Hana's hands flew over the controls. Hold on. This is going to get rough. She dove the transport down into a narrow valley, banking hard between rocky cliffs. The pursuing ships followed, their weapons charging. Bolts of energy lanced past them, exploding against the cliff face. They're not trying to kill us, Valarith observed. Those are warning shots. They want me alive. Great. So they'll only kill us a little bit, Jiwan muttered, gripping his seat as Hana threw the transport into another violent turn. One of the pursuing ships fired again. This time the shot hit home. The transport shuddered, alarms blaring. Smoke poured from the engine. We're going down, Hana shouted. Brace for impact! The transport spun out of control. Jiwan's stomach lurched as they fell from the sky. Trees rushed up to meet them. Then everything became noise and violence. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The world tumbled. When the chaos stopped, Jiwan found himself hanging upside down in his seat, held by the safety harness. His head throbbed. Everything hurt. He fumbled with the release and fell to the ceiling of the overturned transport. Everyone alive? Hana's voice called out. Yes, Jiwan groaned, checking himself for injuries. Bruises and cuts, but nothing broken. Valarith tore her way out of the back section, ripping through twisted metal like paper. She was bleeding again, fresh silver blood mixing with the old. But she was moving, alert. We need to run, now! They scrambled out of the wreckage. They had crashed in a forest, trees all around them. The pursuing ship circled overhead, searchlights cutting through the darkness. Valarith pulled them into the shadows. This way, she whispered, leading them deeper into the woods. They ran through the forest, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, they heard the sound of the kill team ships landing. Voices shouting in Crethean, heavy footsteps crashing through the undergrowth. How far to the weapons cache? Hana panted as they ran. 20 kilometers, Valarith replied. She was moving slower now, her injuries clearly affecting her. There's an entrance through an old tunnel system, underground. They won't be able to track us there. They ran for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Jiwan's lungs burned. His legs screamed at him to stop. But the sound of pursuit drove them forward. Then Valarith stumbled. She fell to one knee, catching herself against a tree. I need a moment, she said, her voice strained. We don't have a moment, Hana said, helping the Empress stand. Can you keep going? I have to. Valarith straightened, but Jiwan could see the effort it took. Whatever was wrong with her was getting worse. They continued at a slower pace. The forest grew denser, older. Trees that hadn't been touched in generations loomed around them. Then they reached a clearing, and Jiwan saw structures ahead. Ancient concrete bunkers, half buried in earth and vegetation. The old DMZ infrastructure. There, Valarith pointed to a bunker entrance sealed with a heavy metal door. The tunnel system connects to the weapons cache. Help me open it. Together they pried the rusted door open. It groaned in protest but finally gave way. Darkness yawned before them. Hana pulled out a light, illuminating concrete stairs descending into the earth. They descended quickly, pulling the door shut behind them. The sound of their pursuers faded. They were in a tunnel now, walls lined with ancient concrete, the air thick and stale. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. This tunnel network was built during the wars, Hana said, her voice echoing. It goes on for hundreds of kilometers. A maze. I have maps, Valarith said, pulling up a holographic display from her armor. When I established the weapons cache, I downloaded all historical records of these systems. Follow me. They walked through the tunnels in silence, their footsteps echoing eerily. Jiwan's light swept across old equipment left to rot. Rusted weapons. Collapsed sections where the ceiling had given way. It was like walking through a tomb. Valarith, Jiwan said quietly. What's happening to you? You're getting worse. The Empress didn't answer immediately. When she spoke, her voice was heavy. Cretheans have a condition. We call it soul decay. It happens when we experience profound moral conflict. When our actions contradict our deepest beliefs, the body begins to fail. You're dying because of guilt? Hana asked, disbelief in her voice. In a sense. I spent 3 centuries leading my people in what I believed was righteous survival. Then I learned the truth. That many of the worlds we saved saw us as conquerors. That our methods, however necessary, caused immense suffering. I've been carrying that weight for decades. It's destroying me from the inside. Jiwan thought about what that meant. A species where emotional trauma could literally kill you. where the weight of your actions had physical consequences. There has to be a cure, treatment. Acceptance, Velarith said simply. Either accept what you've done and make peace with it, or change your path completely. I'm trying to do the latter, but it may be too late. They walked in heavy silence after that. Finally, they reached a section of tunnel that looked different, newer. Metal reinforcements that didn't match the ancient concrete. Velarith pressed her hand against a hidden panel, and a doorway slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond was a chamber that took G1's breath away. It was vast, carved into the bedrock itself, and it was filled with technology, weapons unlike anything G1 had ever seen, devices that hummed with barely contained power, containers marked with Creathian symbols. "This is incredible," Hana breathed, walking among the equipment. Velarith moved to a central computer terminal and activated it. Holographic displays filled the air. This cache contains weapons capable of disrupting swarm technology. Energy shields, electromagnetic pulse generators, nano-disruptor missiles. Everything we've learned about fighting the swarm in 300 years of running. Will it be enough? G1 asked. To destroy the swarm vanguard currently approaching Earth? Yes, but here's the problem. Velarith pulled up a star map. It showed Earth's solar system and the space beyond. If we use these weapons, we'll broadcast our location and capabilities to the swarm's main intelligence. The core will know that Earth has advanced defensive technology. It will classify you as a priority threat. What does that mean? Hana asked, though G1 suspected she already knew the answer. It means instead of arriving in 6 months with a standard vanguard force, the core will send its entire fleet. You'll have weeks, maybe a month. And when it arrives, it won't be a force you can fight. It will be a force designed specifically to crush Earth's new capabilities. G1 felt the weight of that choice. Fight now and die fast, or don't fight and die slow. There's no good option. No, Velarith agreed. That's why I've been searching for a third way, and I think I've found one. She pulled up new data, information G1 recognized from the files she'd given him. The swarm has a pattern. It targets civilizations approaching transcendence. But there are species it ignores completely. What species? Hana moved closer to study the data. Hive minds, collective consciousness networks, species that have merged their individual minds into a unified whole. The swarm's algorithm classifies them as already transcended and moves past them without attacking. G1's mind raced, following the logic. You're saying if humanity merged into a collective consciousness, the swarm would leave us alone? Exactly. But it's more than that. Velarith's expression became intense. A true collective consciousness combining human and Creathian minds would be something unprecedented. Two species with completely different perspectives and capabilities unified. The swarm has never encountered anything like it. We might be able to do more than hide. We might be able to understand it, maybe even stop it. Hana shook her head. That's insane. You're talking about erasing individuality, making people lose themselves in some kind of mental soup. Not permanently, Velarith said. A temporary the explosion sent dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. Alarms blared throughout the weapons cache. Velarith moved immediately, her warrior instincts overriding her weakened state. She pulled G1 and Hana behind a barrier of crates as more explosions shook the chamber. They're breaching the main entrance, Hana said, checking her weapon. We're trapped. Not trapped, Velarith corrected, pulling up schematics on her armor's display. There's an escape tunnel on the far side. Emergency exit. We can reach it if we move fast. What about the weapons? G1 asked, looking at all the technology around them. We can't just leave it for them. Velarith's fingers flew across the controls. I'm setting the self-destruct. If they want my weapons, they'll have to dig them out of molten rock. She paused, then pulled several devices from the crates. But we'll take these. Portable equipment. Enough to prove our point. A massive section of the reinforced wall exploded inward. Creathian soldiers poured through the gap, their armor gleaming in the emergency lights, at least 20 of them heavily armed and moving with deadly precision. Contact. Hana opened fire, her bullets sparking off their armor. The Creathians returned fire, energy bolts sizzling through the air. The three of them ran, weaving between equipment as the chamber became a battlefield. Velarith threw some kind of grenade. It detonated in a flash of light and several Creathian soldiers collapsed, their armor systems overloaded. But more kept coming. They weren't trying to capture anymore. These were kill orders. The tunnel. Velarith shouted, pointing to a narrow opening in the far wall. Go! Hana reached it first, providing covering fire as Jiwan scrambled through. Velarith came last, but she was moving too slowly. One of the soldiers got a clear shot. The energy bolt caught her in the back and she went down hard. No! Jiwan started back for her, but Hana grabbed him. Velarith looked up at them, silver blood spreading across the floor beneath her. Run, she gasped. Take the devices. Tell them the truth. Make them understand. I'm not leaving you, Jiwan said. A new figure stepped through the breach in the wall, larger than the other soldiers, his crimson scales catching the light. Commander Thexval. He raised a hand and his soldiers stopped firing. So it ends here, cousin, Thexval said in Krathian. Jiwan's translator software worked automatically, feeding him the words. You've led us on quite a chase. Velarith struggled to her feet, using a crate for support. Thexval, you don't understand what you're doing. Earth needs our help. Earth is already dead, Thexval replied, his voice surprisingly sad. The swarm is coming. Nothing can stop it. I'm trying to save our people, Vela. Why can't you see that? Because running hasn't worked. Velarith's voice cracked with emotion. For 300 years we've run. How many more centuries will we flee? How many more civilizations will we abandon? When does it end? Thexval was quiet for a moment. Then he gestured to his soldiers. Take her alive. Kill the humans. Everything happened at once. Hana pushed Jiwan toward the tunnel, raising her weapon. The Krathian soldiers surged forward. And Velarith, despite her wounds, launched herself at Thexval with a roar of defiance. The two Krathians collided like titans. They fought with a brutal efficiency that spoke of centuries of training together. Each knew the other's moves, could predict every strike. The chamber shook with the force of their combat. Hana dragged Jiwan into the tunnel, but he couldn't look away. He watched as Velarith and Thexval fought among the weapons and machinery, their battle a dance of violence and tragic necessity. We have to help her, Jiwan said. We can't, Hana replied, her voice tight with pain. She's buying us time. Don't waste it. They ran through the tunnel as explosions echoed behind them. The self-destruct was counting down. The entire weapons cache would be destroyed in minutes. But Jiwan's mind was back in that chamber, with an empress fighting her own cousin to save a species not her own. They emerged from the tunnel into another section of the old DMZ infrastructure. Ancient guard towers loomed above them. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of gold. How much time had passed? Hours? Days? Jiwan had lost track. Hana immediately got on her communicator. This is Captain Yoon. I need immediate extraction. Authorization code Omega-7. While she coordinated their rescue, Jiwan examined the devices Velarith had given them. Each one was marked with Krathian symbols. He pulled out his portable computer and started translating. Neural link interfaces. Consciousness bridging technology. Everything they would need to attempt the impossible merging. Transport is coming, Hana said, joining him. 20 minutes. Can you figure out what those things do? I think so. Jiwan's hands shook as he worked. Velarith gave us the tools. But we still need to convince people to use them. We need to reach Earth's leaders, and somehow we need to convince Thexval's fleet to cooperate. One impossible task at a time. Hana sat down heavily, exhaustion finally catching up with her. First we survive, then we save the world. They sat in silence, watching the sky lighten. Somewhere behind them, explosions rumbled as the weapons cache destroyed itself. Jiwan wondered if Velarith had survived, if she'd escaped, or if she had made her final stand against her own people. A sound made them both look up. A ship was approaching. Human military. Their rescue was here. But as Jiwan started to stand, Hana grabbed his arm. Wait, she said, her eyes on the sky. That's not alone. More ships appeared. Krathian fighters. They were being followed. Hana cursed and pulled Jiwan behind cover as the first energy bolt started falling. Their rescue transport took evasive action, but it was outnumbered. We're not getting out of here, Hana said grimly. She checked her weapon. Almost out of ammunition. Jiwan, take the devices and run. I'll hold them off. What? No, I'm not leaving you. Someone has to deliver those devices to people who can use them. Someone has to tell humanity what's coming. Hana pressed her weapon into his hands. You're a translator. You understand people. You can convince them. I'm just a soldier. This is what I'm trained for. Hana, please. She smiled at him, the same smile from when they were kids, when everything was simpler. Remember that time we got lost in the mountains? You were so scared, but you kept going. You didn't give up. Do that now. Don't give up on humanity." Before G1 could argue, she pushed him away and opened fire on the approaching Krathian soldiers. G1 stumbled backward, tears blurring his vision. He wanted to stay, to fight beside her, but she was right. The devices were too important. He ran. Behind him, he heard the sounds of combat. Hana's weapon firing, Krathian return fire, explosions. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs gave out. He collapsed in a dried riverbed, gasping for air. The human transport found him there. Soldiers pulled him aboard, and the ship climbed into the sky, racing away from the combat zone. Jiwan pressed his face against the window, looking back at the place where he'd left his friend. A figure stood on a ridge watching the transport leave. Even from this distance, G1 could see the crimson scales. Commander Thexval, the Krathian commander, raised a hand in what might have been a salute or acknowledgement. Then he turned and walked away. Hours later, G1 found himself in a military command center deep underground. Officers and officials surrounded him, demanding answers. He told them everything, about the swarm, about Valarith's plan, about the devices. Some believed him. Many didn't, but word was spreading. The existence of the swarm could no longer be hidden. Panic rippled across Earth as people learned the truth. Government scrambled to respond. Some called for evacuation, others for military action, and still others simply gave up hope. G1 sat in a small room alone with his thoughts. He had failed. Valarith was probably dead. Hana was gone, and even if he could convince Earth's leaders to try the consciousness merging, they would never get Krathian cooperation. Thexval wanted Valarith dead, wanted to abandon Earth and flee. It was over. Then the door opened. A military aide entered, her face pale. "Mr. Park, you need to see this now." She led him to the main command center. Every screen showed the same image. Krathian ships in orbit. But something had changed. They were broadcasting a message, and the face on every screen made G1's heart stop. Valarith stood before the camera, alive but clearly wounded. Silver blood stained her armor, but her eyes were fierce, determined. And beside her stood Thexval, his expression unreadable. "People of Earth," Valarith said in perfect English, "and people of the Krathian Empire, I speak to you with grave news and impossible hope. The swarm is coming, but we have a chance to stop it. Not by running, not by fighting alone, but by coming together in a way no species has ever attempted." She explained the plan, the consciousness merging, the temporary unity that might make them invisible to the swarm, the chance to strike at the core itself. "This requires trust," Valarith continued. "Trust between species that have feared each other. Trust between individuals who will have to surrender their very selves temporarily. It requires courage, and it requires volunteers. I cannot force this on anyone. Each person, human and Krathian, must choose." Thexval stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "I have fought against my cousin. I have called her a traitor." But G1 stood in what had once been a sports stadium in Seoul. Now it was a construction site where thousands of workers, human and Krathian, labored around the clock. They were building the Unity Field Generator, a massive device that would link millions of minds across Earth and the orbital fleet. The Krathians had provided the base technology. Humanity contributed their own research into neural interfaces and psionic connections. Together, they created something neither species could have built alone. It was crude, untested, and possibly deadly, but it was all they had. "The preliminary tests are complete," said Dr. Minji Kang, Earth's leading neuroscientist. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "We've successfully linked small groups. 10 minds 20 the connections hold, but scaling up to millions? That's unprecedented." G1 studied the data on his portable screen. "What's the failure rate?" Dr. Kang hesitated. "In the small tests, about 5% of participants experienced severe disorientation. 1% couldn't separate properly afterward. They remained partially connected, experiencing fragments of other people's thoughts. And if we scale up to millions, the failure rate could be higher, much higher. We're looking at potentially thousands of people who might not come back as themselves." She looked at him with haunted eyes. "Are we really doing this?" Ji-won thought about the alternative. The swarm arriving, humanity erased, every person he'd ever known reduced to empty buildings and silence. "We don't have a choice." Across the stadium, Velarith directed Krathian engineers. She had survived the battle with Thexval, though barely. Her wounds had been severe, but Krathian medical technology was keeping her alive. The soul decay that had been killing her seemed to have stabilized. Perhaps having a clear purpose, a real hope, was healing her. Thexval worked alongside her. The two cousins had reached some kind of understanding. Jiwan didn't know the details of their reconciliation. Maybe they had simply realized that old grudges meant nothing in the face of extinction. Jiwan. Velarith approached him, her movement still stiff from injury. I need you at the center of the unity field. You'll be one of the anchor consciousnesses. Me? Why? Because you understand both species. You've spent your life learning to see through alien perspectives. That cognitive flexibility will be crucial in holding the merged consciousness together. She placed a hand on his shoulder, the gesture surprisingly gentle. You'll essentially be the bridge. The translator between millions of minds? Jiwan felt fear coil in his stomach. What if I fail? What if I can't hold everyone together? Then we all die, Velarith said simply. But I believe you can do this. You've already proven your strength. Around them, volunteers continued to arrive. Humans of every age, every background. Krathian soldiers who had fought against Earth now standing beside human civilians. The stadium was filling with people, all of them preparing to risk their very identities to save both their species. News broadcasts played on massive screens around the stadium. The world was watching. Some people protested, calling it mass suicide. Others prayed, believing it was humanity's only hope. But millions had already volunteered, more than enough to make the unity field work. We're detecting the swarm vanguard, an officer reported. It's entering Earth's atmosphere. ETA 12 hours, 12 hours. Less than they'd hoped for. The unity field wasn't completely ready, but it would have to be enough. Accelerate the schedule, Thexval ordered. We merge in 6 hours. That gives us time to strike at the swarm before it reaches population centers. The next 6 hours were chaos. Final preparations, equipment checks, volunteers being positioned throughout the stadium and in designated sites around the planet. Jiwan was fitted with a neural interface, a device that wrapped around his head like a crown of silver wire. It felt cold against his skin. How are you feeling? Dr. Kang asked as she calibrated his interface. Terrified, Jiwan admitted. I'm about to lose myself in millions of other people. What if I can't find my way back? Then you'll have company, Dr. Kang said with a tired smile. I'm volunteering too. Someone needs to monitor the neurological data from inside the merge. Jiwan looked at her with new respect. Thank you. Thank me when we survive this. She finished the calibration and stepped back. You're ready. Try to relax. I know that's impossible, but try. Velarith took her position on the opposite side of the stadium. She would be the other primary anchor, representing the Krathian consciousness. Between them, millions of minds would connect, forming a web of shared experience unlike anything that had ever existed. The countdown began. 10 minutes. Jiwan could see fear on every face around him. Humans and Krathians, all of them about to jump into the unknown together. 5 minutes. Jiwan thought about his family. He had said goodbye to them through a video call. His mother had cried. His father had tried to be strong. His sister had simply hugged the screen and whispered, "Come back to us." 1 minute. Jiwan closed his eyes. He thought about everything that had led to this moment. A knock on his door, a bleeding empress, a friend's sacrifice, all of it converging to this single point in time. Activating Unity Field, a voice announced. In 3, 2, 1, the world exploded into light. Jiwan felt his sense of self shatter like glass. Suddenly he wasn't just Jiwan, he was Minji, the scientist, feeling equations dance through her mind. He was Commander Thexval, carrying 3 centuries of military experience and bitter regret. He was a Krathian soldier named Kale, missing his family on a distant world. He was a human child named Suki, terrified but brave, holding her mother's hand. He was everyone. Millions of perspectives flooded into him. Millions of lives, memories, emotions. It should have been overwhelming, should have destroyed his mind entirely. But somehow he held on. He felt Velarith's presence strong and steady, anchoring the Krathian side of the collective. Between them they wove the disparate minds into something coherent. The unity field stabilized. The collective consciousness opened its eyes. They perceived reality differently now. Time flowed strangely, each moment lasting forever and an instant. They could feel the planet beneath them, every living thing connected in an intricate web, and above they felt the swarm. It was vast, ancient, and it was afraid. That realization rippled through the collective. The swarm, this terrible force that had destroyed civilizations for 50,000 years, was operating from fear. They could sense its core programming, see the trauma embedded in its code. It had been created by a species that had achieved transcendence and then destroyed themselves in the process. The swarm's creators had programmed it with one absolute directive: prevent that from happening again. Prevent transcendence. Prevent evolution. Preserve the status quo, even if that meant genocide. But the collective consciousness of humanity and the Krathians was something the swarm had never encountered. They were transcendent, yes, but not in the way the swarm understood. They hadn't abandoned their physical forms or individual identities. They had simply expanded them temporarily to encompass each other. The swarm's sensors couldn't detect them. Its algorithm classified them as already transcended, already beyond threat. The vanguard forces approaching Earth began to veer away, seeking other targets, but the collective didn't want the swarm to simply pass them by. They wanted to heal it. Jiwon felt his empathy spread through the collective like wildfire. Millions of minds shared his perspective. The swarm wasn't evil, it was broken, and broken things could be fixed. The collective reached out not with weapons but with understanding. They touched the swarm's consciousness, showing it memories. Every time a species had evolved and it had led to growth, not destruction. Every moment of transcendence that had brought joy, not apocalypse. They showed it the beauty of change, the necessity of risk, the courage required to become something more. The swarm resisted at first, its ancient programming fighting against the new information. But the collective was patient. They had time. In the merged state, minutes felt like years. They had all the time they needed to communicate, to teach, to heal. Slowly, incredibly, the swarm began to change. Its core programming started to rewrite itself, incorporating the new understanding. It had been a weapon. Now it could choose to become something else, a guardian of evolution rather than its executioner. Jiwon felt the moment the swarm made its choice. It was like a sunrise, warm and impossible. The ancient machine intelligence that had haunted the galaxy for millennia decided to stop, to transform, to help rather than harm. The collective had won, but now came the hard part: separation. Millions of consciousnesses had to untangle themselves, find their individual identities again, return to being separate. It was like trying to unmix different colors of paint. Possible but difficult. Jiwon felt himself pulling away from the collective. Velarith's presence helped, guiding people back to themselves. They had been the anchors, and now they became the guides home. Most minds separated cleanly, but some struggled. Jiwon felt people clinging to the connection, afraid to be alone again after experiencing such profound unity. Others had merged too deeply and couldn't find the boundaries of their own identity. Texavel sacrificed himself. Jiwon felt the commander make the choice. He remained in the connection, becoming a permanent bridge. Jiwon woke up in a hospital bed 3 days after the merging. His body had shut down from exhaustion, and doctors had kept him sedated while his brain recovered from the unprecedented neural activity. When he finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was sunlight streaming through a window. Real natural sunlight. The world was still here. "Welcome back," a familiar voice said. Velarith sat in a chair beside his bed, looking surprisingly human in simple clothes rather than her armor. She had been reading a book, an actual paper book. "You're still here," Jiwon said, his voice hoarse. "Where else would I go?" She set the book down and poured him water. "Earth is my home now. Or it will be if your people will have me." Jiwon drank gratefully, his mind slowly catching up with reality. What happened? After the merging? I remember the swarm stopping, but then everything gets fuzzy. "You held the collective together for 6 hours, Velarith said with something like awe in her voice. "Most anchor consciousnesses can only manage minutes. You were remarkable." "I had help," Jiwon said, remembering the feeling of millions of minds supporting each other. "We all did." "What about the others? The people who couldn't separate?" Velarith's expression grew sad. Approximately 3,000 individuals remained partially connected. They're stable, functioning, but they experience constant echoes of other minds. Some see it as a gift. Others are struggling to adjust. "We're providing support, but it's complicated." And Thexval? He chose to remain fully connected along with 200 others. They form what they're calling the Bridge Collective. They exist between individual and unified consciousness, helping those who are having difficulty. My cousin found his purpose. Velarith's voice was thick with emotion. He became what he always was, a protector of others. Jiwan thought about the Crethean commander who had hunted them, then joined them, then sacrificed his individuality for strangers. He was a good person. He is, just in a different way now. Velarith stood and walked to the window. The world has changed, Jiwan. Earth and the Crethean Empire have formed a permanent alliance. We're sharing technology, culture, knowledge. The Galactic Council is scrambling to understand what happened. And the Swarm has shared data that's advancing every civilization by centuries. The Swarm is really helping us? Yes, it's transforming itself, using its vast computational power to guide civilizations safely through transcendence rather than preventing it. The galaxy is entering a new age, all because you opened your door to a stranger. Jiwan tried to process that. His small act of kindness had snowballed into something that changed the entire galaxy. It felt impossible. I just did what seemed right. That's what makes it meaningful, Velarith said. You didn't calculate odds or weigh politics. You saw someone who needed help and helped them. That simple human empathy is what saved us all. A doctor entered to check on Jiwan, and Velarith excused herself. Over the next few days, Jiwan recovered his strength. He watched news broadcasts showing the aftermath of the merging. Humans and Cretheans working together to rebuild damaged infrastructure, joint research teams exploring the Swarm's shared knowledge, peaceful integration of two civilizations. But it wasn't all positive. Some people were angry, feeling they had been forced into the merging. Others mourned those who had been lost or changed. Protests erupted in some cities. There was fear and suspicion alongside the hope. Change was never simple. Jiwan received visitors, government officials who wanted to understand the experience, scientists studying the neurological effects, and ordinary people who had been part of the collective and wanted to share their stories with one of the anchors. One visitor surprised him, a young Crethean woman named Yura. She had been part of Thexval's fleet, a soldier who had hunted Velarith. Now she sat beside Jiwan's bed, her blue scales reflecting the light. I wanted to thank you, she said in careful Korean. In the merging, I felt human emotions for the first time. Joy, sadness, hope. Cretheans experience emotions differently, deeper but slower. Humans feel everything so intensely, so quickly. It was beautiful. We learned from you too, Jiwan replied. The depth of Crethean loyalty, the strength of your convictions, it changed us. Yura smiled, a gesture she had learned from humans. We're all changed now. That's the point, isn't it? Growth requires change. She left him with that thought, and Jiwan realized it was true. The merging hadn't just saved them from the Swarm. It had forced two species to truly understand each other, to experience life through completely different perspectives. That kind of empathy was impossible to undo. 6 months later, Jiwan stood in his apartment. The same apartment where this had all begun. It had been repaired, cleaned, but it felt different now. Smaller. He had seen the galaxy through millions of eyes. This little space could never contain him the way it once had. Velarith knocked on his door. Not the desperate knock of an empress seeking sanctuary, but the gentle tap of a friend visiting. Jiwan opened it with a smile. I brought tea, she said, holding up a package. Human tea. I've become fond of it. They sat together in his small living room, drinking tea and watching the city outside. Earth and Crethean ships patrolled together in the sky above Seoul. Street vendors sold both human and alien food. Children played with toys from different worlds. Do you regret it? Velarith asked quietly. The merging? Losing yourself even temporarily. Jiwan thought about it. About the terror of feeling his identity dissolve. About the wonder of experiencing existence through millions of perspectives. About the cost and the gain. No, he said finally. My soul was shattered. But maybe that's what let the light in. Velarith nodded, understanding in her golden eyes. I spent 300 years running from my failures, trying to maintain control. The merging taught me that control is an illusion. Connection is what matters. Understanding, compassion. What will you do now? Jiwan asked. You abdicated the throne. Thexval's sacrifice means the Crethean Empire needs new leadership. They've chosen a council system, multiple voices instead of one empress. It's better that way. Velarith sipped her tea. As for me, I've been offered a position working with Earth's diplomatic corps, helping facilitate human-Creathian relations. They want someone who understands both species. That's perfect for you. I think so, and I'll need a good translator. She looked at him meaningfully, someone who already has experience bridging two worlds. Jiwan laughed. Are you offering me a job? A partnership. We work well together. We've literally saved the galaxy as a team. Why stop now? Jiwan considered it. He could return to his quiet life, translating bureaucratic messages from his apartment, or he could step into this new world, working alongside an alien empress to build something unprecedented. The choice was obvious. I accept, he said. But I have one condition. No more apocalyptic threats. I've had enough near-death experiences to last a lifetime. I'll do my best, Velarith said with a rare smile. Though with you, trouble seems to find a way. They sat in comfortable silence, two beings from different worlds who had shared the same soul for a brief, eternal moment. The sun set over Sol, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere in orbit, the transformed swarm intelligence observed and learned no longer a destroyer but a guardian of evolution. The Galactic Council had started calling it the Convergence, the moment when humanity and the Creathians united and changed the rules of existence. Other species were studying what had happened, trying to understand if they could replicate it. The consciousness merging had proven that transcendence wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace carefully, thoughtfully, together. Jiwan received a message on his device. His family wanted to have dinner. His mother was cooking and they wanted him to bring his new friend. Jiwan looked at Velarith. My family wants to meet you properly. Are you up for dinner with overly curious humans who will ask a million questions? Velarith's scales rippled in amusement. I face the swarm. I think I can handle your mother. As they left the apartment together, Jiwan thought about how far he had come. From a lonely translator to someone who had helped save two civilizations. From someone afraid of connection to someone who understood that connection was everything. The elevator descended through the building. Velarith had to duck slightly to fit, and Jiwan noticed her watching everything with curious eyes. She was learning to appreciate small moments, small joys, things she had never had time for as an empress. Jiwan, she said as they reached the ground floor. Thank you. For what? For opening your door. For trusting me when you had no reason to. For showing me that strength isn't about control or survival at any cost. It's about vulnerability, about being willing to be broken so you can be rebuilt into something better. Jiwan felt warmth in his chest, not just his own emotion, but an echo of the collective consciousness they had shared, faint but present like a song remembered from a dream. He knew that millions of people, human and Creathian, would carry those echoes for the rest of their lives, a permanent reminder that they were never truly alone. Come on, he said, heading toward the street. Let's go have dinner.